Hello, everyone, and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Tibor Fejes, and I'm the head of the training department here at Lightware Visual Engineering, and I'll be the host for this event. Today, our presenter will be Tamás Lehel, our product portfolio manager.
Hi.
And we also have Gábor Kocsis working in the background. He's one of our trainer colleagues, so he will be watching out for your questions and answering a few of them in the background. Today's webinar is called Advanced Control Pack version 3. So we are going to talk about the latest advancements to Event Manager and some related functionalities. So this is not going to be a Event Manager introduction webinar. So we anticipate that you already know Event Manager. Maybe you already worked with Event Manager. You configured events, so you know what a condition and an action is. So we are going to build upon that anticipated knowledge. While we wait for some more attendees to join, let's cover some housekeeping items. First, depending on what type of device you're using, you will be able to see Tamás's webcam and his shared screen with the PowerPoint, and you can manually resize to make one or the other bigger on bigger screens. But if you're watching on a smartphone, then you can swipe left and right to switch between the webcam and the screen sharing. Unfortunately, on such small screens, you cannot see both feeds at the same time. By default, all the attendees are muted since this is a webinar, but questions can be submitted at any time during the webinar using the questions panel. And Gábor and myself will be looking out for those questions. And if we have a question which is interesting enough for everybody to hear the answer to, then we will keep those questions until the live Q&A at the end. So please keep the questions coming. But also, if you don't have questions, you just like one of those features, or you dislike one of those features, or you're missing something about that feature, please also put your comment in the question box, because we always appreciate your feedback whenever we introduce something new. And lastly, I would like to assure everyone that this webinar is being recorded, and GoToWebinar system will send an automatic follow-up email 2 or 3 hours after the session ends, and that email will contain a link to the recording. So I think it's going to be quite useful because we will cover some deep technical things today. So I think many of you will want to watch that recording again, but don't worry, you will have the recording. So with all the technical stuff out of the way, I think everybody who wanted to join is already here. So let me pass the word over to Tamás to talk about the Advanced Control Pack. Tamás, the stage is yours.
Thank you. I have a very little stage here in my home. It is always an interesting thing to get these webinars, because usually we have seminars in Budapest inviting all our key customers. So this is a new thing to have these webinars these days, of course. But I would encourage you to give the questions during the time. So be the first to ask about something. Right. Tibor have talked about that we are very happy to listen to all of our customers, and actually this is how the whole project of developing this feature pack started. So I really hope you are familiar with the Event Manager in its base, and the idea was to improve it even further, because we have hearing a lot of different requests from here and there that, okay, I can do with this Event Manager, but what if I could do even more? So we have collected all of these ideas and wanted to make integrations even more clear, even more easy, simplified, and to do even more things. And also we wanted to make this feature pack to be able releasing to many of our products as possible, because we have seen that the big product range is used by different integrators, so the same features will be accessible for many of the products as a firmware upgrade. Actually, it is a free firmware upgrade, so when it comes ready, then you can download the new firmware from our website and your device will be even more smarter than before. So here are the involved products. Actually, the first one will be released in a couple of days, I think, for the MMX 4x2 series in October. And just after that, in November, we will continue with the MMX 8x4 series to cover these features. And hopefully still in December, we are releasing the firmware package for the room automation panels to have all of these features. Later on next year, in the first quarter, we plan to have the firmware packages for the UMX 140 series, even the SW4, HDMI TPS receivers, and also the wall plate UMX transmitter. Maybe it's worth to highlight that the firmware upgrade will be available only for the Plus series of these products. So you may know that, for example, the UMX TPS TX has a Plus and a non-Plus version. So these additional features will be available in the Plus versions. However, for the MMX and for the room automation panel, there is no differentiation, so all the products are just getting the feature pack. So let's see what are the features included in this mysterious feature pack. So I've talked about that we are collecting the ideas since a couple of years, and finally we found the engineering resources to make it as a development in a package. For the event manager, we have introduced the end operator, which allows you to combine events in a nice way. Some of you may already know that this was available hidden in the firmware recently, but now it is officially there. The variable handling is a completely new thing that is introduced. I will talk about that in very much detail. And also the condition triggering is a new feature which helps you to use a tablet or touch panel and trigger a condition which is already there in the event manager. The second group is the external control improvements. For example, Cisco integration, Cisco RoomKit integration, and other third-party integration are much more easier with these improvements, because we will introduce a TCP message recognizer. You may know that it was already since I think a year ago that we have introduced the serial port recognizer. Now we will have it for Ethernet TCP IP as well. Also, HTTP communication is introduced here. So you will be able to send a Salvo command file to the HTTP port on the device, and also the Lightwear device will be able to send HTTP messages, for example, controlling third-party devices or even home automation IoT. Just a little thing that sending a wake online command is listed here to turn on a PC, for example, in a meeting room where you have a resident PC. The third topic is the basic IT security, which is really highly requested, I think, since 1 or 2 years. And finally, we found a way to make it happen in these devices. The clear text login is still unencrypted. However, it makes a very nice entry-level authentication to control the devices, and also IP port filtering and MAC address filtering can give you another layer of security if you have a corporate network for controlling Lightwear devices. Last but not least, I have listed here some little improvements in the Lightwear 3 communication protocol. We have introduced some new properties for the connected source checking, and even the host name can be set up, and the CC control is improved with some minor firmware modifications. So let's jump into the details and check what is the end operator. Practically, we have a picture here indicating the main use case, which is a divisible room, probably having a wall sensor, which can tell me that if the wall is in place or the room is divided or the wall is hidden, and you can have a combined room. This is a good example because here you can have an event turning on the display and routing the video signal, but also you can have another factor, a conditional factor, to modify that event if the wall is there or not there. The example is like this. So the room is divided, then the wall sensor sends a true signal over GPIO to the matrix, or if the room is combined and the wall is hidden away, then the wall sensor will send me a false signal. And then I can set up an event if a laptop is plugged in to the room A desktop transmitter and the wall sensor is true, I can route it automatically to display A because I know that it is a single room, a divided room, and I want to route only to display A, not affecting the other part of the room. However, if the laptop is plugged in and the wall sensor is false, then I can tell that, okay, I have a combined room now, and I can have an event set up to route that same laptop signal to both displays. So if I have a larger audience in the combined room, I can have all of them to watch what I am presenting. To see the details how you can set this up, I have made this diagram that showing I have 5 conditions. One condition can be the GPIO is pulled low. This is indicating that room is divided. So I have detected the wall sensor is a close contact. I have another condition, the GPIO is high when the room is combined because the wall sensor is not closing that contact in that case. And the third condition will be to detect the signal presence from, for example, that laptop I have talked about. What I need to do is to set up a fourth and a fifth event to join these conditions. And I can join condition 1 and condition 3, and when both are true, action 4 is triggered, so the signal is sent to display A. And the funny part is when the same condition 3, but condition 2 is active, then I can trigger action 5 and send the signal to both displays. This is how it looks like in the event manager window of the LDC. So you might be familiar with that one, and you can see here we have a new tab which is called Combine Links because I have set up condition 1 and 3, and I can select those in the Combine Links tab, so I can use the wall sensor low and the laptop signal joined as the new condition in event 4, and in event 4 I have my action here to route my input to the second output, which is the other part of the room. It's that easy. Let's go on. The second feature is the variable handling. It will be a little bit more into details of programming, but also you don't have to be a programmer because we have made a nice user-friendly interface in our LDC. The use case for variables is when you have a more complex system where the automation needs some numerical or text variables for forking the events. For example, if you want to have a toggle-like action to turn the light on and off with a single press of one button, that is possible with the new numerical operations on these variables. Also, the cyclic operations can be easily done because you can set up a cycle to roll over, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, then 1, 2, 3, 4, then something like that, and control events based on that variable. Also, we can scan some desired properties. So, for example, we can count how many times a cable was plugged in. You might be familiar with the Lightware's protocol that there is a property for each input if it is connected or not. So for example, you can set up a counter in a variable that each time a cable is connected, you can add 1 to that counter, and then you can count how many times the cable was plugged, and then you can be sure that if the room is used or working properly. Also, it is possible to detect complex string properties because we can have a pattern matching scan. So if you have a property which is quite long, containing multiple information, then you can crop that and scan that part which is important to you. It works like this in this diagram, that we have these variables, and we have, of course, the nodes and properties in the background. And then we can have some numerical and string operations also using the variables or using those nodes. And finally, the new value of the variable can trigger an event and multiple actions to be executed. Let's see a very, very basic example to better understand how to do this. For example, if I have a simple press button connected to a GPIO, then I can set up a toggle variable which can trigger different actions. For example, turning the lamp on and off, or even having multiple steps. Here on the left side, you can see I have an operand of 1, which is the value which will be added each time to the original value. And if I am cycling this, then it will toggle between 0 and 1, because the cycle gives a loop between the minimum and maximum values. However, on the right hand side example, I can make off, a dim, and on lights, because I am toggling between 0, 1, and 2, this cycle variable. Another nice example, a bit more sophisticated, to have a system global status. Let's say I have a variable telling me that the room is off or on. And in this case, I can have several conditions to set to write this variable. Then different actions can be triggered based on this single variable. So I can have a little indirection in between. I do not have to set up a lot of events, only these ones. For example, if a shutdown button is pressed, if there is no signal for 30 minutes, or even if the occupancy sensor sees no activity in the room for a couple of minutes, all of these conditions can set that single variable to turn the room off. And this variable value can be then used as a condition for all of these multiple actions to turn the light off, turn the projector off, also send the projector up and rolling up the screen, or whatever you name it. Let's see how it looks in the Lightware device controller. So you can set a variable based on a condition, or also as an additional condition with an AND operator. We have 30 variables, and each can be a number or a simple string containing 15 characters. And this screenshot I have here is a variables viewer panel where you can check all of your 30 variables, the actual values of them. And also it is very nice that we have integrated here a history log, so you can be sure how your variables were changing over time recently. So this panel helps you to better understand how to work with variables, because you can play around with those on this right side panel. And also, of course, when you want to use it in real life, you will turn out to use it from the event editor or the event manager. So here you can see an event editor window. Simply, it is very similar. In the wizard, you can set up an action, for example, to add the value with a cycle, like the earlier mentioned toggle button and the light example for that. Let's see what kind of operations do we have for the variable handling. First of all, we have talked about the adding and the cycling, on where the operand value is added to the original value. And if you are using the simple add function, then it will limit between the min and maximum, so it will just stop when it reaches max. However, if you are using the cycle function, it will loop around, so it will be 1, 2, 3, and then back to 1. It depends on the application which one to use. Also, we have the case convert function, which allows you to check the value of the variable and then convert it to up to 16 different cases. This could be used, for example, to indicate if a value is low, medium, or too high. For example, if you're scanning the system temperature, then you can set up a conversion that if it is between 0 and 25, you can tell the temperature is low. If it is between 25 and 35, you can tell it's medium, and if it's above 35, you can tell it's high. Why it's important or interesting? Because if you set a variable with that, then you can make it another condition to detect if the temperature is high, then maybe you want some other actions to be triggered. For example, send a command to the main supervising system, or turn something down, the heating, or something like that. Also, you can reformat the strings and scan the strings in properties. For example, we have a couple of properties in the Lightware node, Lightware version 3, node 3, which are quite complex. The latest one I have recognized is, for example, this temperature property, which for whatever reason, it has the current value and some historical values listed in one property, because for some system monitoring, that was how it is developed. However, if you want to check only the current temperature, you can scan that little part and then work with that later on for other events. Or also, for example, if you have a volume percentage or something like that, you can scan a part of that and work with that with other events. A very, very nice thing that I have, if we have information in the device and I want to send that information, for example, even resolution of the incoming signal or the temperature of my unit, then I cannot really do that, because I can send a TCP command with a fixed message. But we have found a solution to overcome that, because we have made available to use the variables in the send message commands. So in this example, you can see here, I have a $ and number 7 typed here, and I have checked the checkbox to use variables. This tells the event manager then when it wants to perform this action, it will read the exact and actual value of the variable number 7 and substitute that into the message which will be sent. So in this example here, I have made another action to read the temperature of my internal system and store it in variable number 7, and then I can simply tell that I want to send this message. It will include the actual value. It is 36 Celsius degrees now, and I can send it to an external device if I want to use that. And here's a little thing about the condition triggering. So you may also remember that we have another feature which was called the testing and action in the event manager, and we have made a couple of tablet pages or mini web pages or for controlling the room, which had buttons on it, and that tell the event manager to fire an action stored in the event manager. However, even myself, when I was working with that on some trade shows, setting up a demo, I have found out that it is not the best way to make, because if you want to modify the action, then you have to modify the user interface on the tablet as well. So that's why we came up with the idea to trigger the condition part of the event, because if your event manager is set up to do certain actions when there is a signal presence detected, then you can fake that condition with a press of a button on your tablet. So the same sequence of actions will be performed if you press that button. So the exact example here is that when a signal presence detection is there, then the user wants to turn on the lights or turn on the TV and the sequence of actions. And if he programs the action triggering on the tablet, then he has to set a lot of different actions there. But this one helps you to have a condition getting triggered, because your external condition can tell the event manager to fake that condition, do whatever it is needed, what you would like to do when that condition will happen. And in this case, the lighter device will do the same. All the actions are performed, and you do not need to have a hassle with all the actions on your tablet configuration. Maybe here it is a good time to tell that we are in development with a new product, which will be called, or the internal code name is Room Control App, which will be a native Android and iOS app, allowing you to configure some layouts with different buttons, and those buttons can send different commands to the system. And for that one, it will be, I think, really useful that you can simply set a button to trigger a condition in the event manager, and then you can put the tablet away and do whatever you want in the event manager, because it will work the same. Also, recently we have introduced an online configurator for the mini web page, which is stored in the devices. So if you can have a customized mini web page stored in the Lightwear device, you can set that up as well to have a little button, and then you open the browser to connect to the device on any tablet, then you will have those buttons there. Right. So let's go over to the second topic, which is the integrated control. And first of all, I would like to show you the TCP message recognizer here. As you may know, we already had the TCP message sending in many years ago, but we were missing the recognizer part for that. You can use this to detect third-party Ethernet device commands, for example, any command coming from a projector or a display in the room, or even an Ethernet button panel. This helps to integrate multiple Lightwear devices in the same system as well, because you can subscribe to property changes in each other, so it can communicate with each other. In this little example here, I have a laptop, a 4x2 little matrix, a projector, and the room automation panel. Of course, this little room could work on its own because it could be automated with the event manager sitting inside the 4x2 matrix, but for the sake of this demo, I have connected this room automation panel as well. So let's see what I want to turn the projector on. I can press that button, and the room automation panel will send an Ethernet command to the projector. And the tricky part comes here, that it will only blink the backlight of the button because I can read the response from the projector that it is still warming up. However, when it comes ready, it will send me a signal that, hello, I am ready, and then I can turn the backlight continuously on the room automation panel, so the user can know that he is ready to present. Also, if I am pressing an input select on the room automation panel, I can program it to have a blinking background backlight, because there is no signal on the selected input. However, if the laptop turned on, then it will become continuous, because the MMX 4x2 matrix can send the command to the room automation panel that I have a signal here, and then I can have my continuous backlight to indicate the signal is passing through correctly. Let's see another example. This is a little bit different system. Here I have a display instead of the projector, but also instead of the room automation panel, I have an iPad with the mentioned mini web page, for example, which has buttons for source selection and also has a button to turn the display on or off. And what I can do here is that send a response from, or sends a response from the TV. If it is turned on, then the MMX 4x2 will detect the TV is on, and it will be able to set a variable or something to turn this button green to indicate the TV is on. This is very useful where, for example, there is a technician sitting not in the room, but somewhere in the big building, the corporate building, then he can remotely check each meeting room and even check if the monitors are on or check any other feature. Because this little web page here is not only openable on the iPad, but of course with any computer connected on the network. So he can check remotely what is happening in the room. Let's see the background, how it works in the LVC. The message recognizer itself is very similar to the RS-232 recognizer that I have mentioned. We have it since years. However, to have a message recognizer on TCP, we have to define some clients which will connect to the TCP server that he wants to listen to. So for this purpose, we made 3 TCP clients which you can set up for different target server IP addresses and server ports. And also you can make sure to automatically reconnect if the connection is lost. Here I can see the detected messages. So this is something like a log of the recently detected messages. I can see it in a hexadecimal way and also the hash footprint of that command that is easier to use in some cases because it's much shorter. So in this case, for example, the TCP server will be the display or the projector or whatever third-party device, and the TCP client is sitting in the MMX little unit which connects to the server and listens to the messages which it can receive. Here, for example, I made an example that receiving a lamp preheating message from a projector or receiving a signal presence feedback from an MMX matrix. Of course, these recognized messages will be useful only when you can use it in an event manager condition. So that's why I have copied here the event manager window where you can type what kind of received message do you want to listen to, and when that message is received, then you can trigger the connected action by this condition. I hope it's all clear. Just type your questions if I am too fast or you need more details. So let's go forward with the integrated control. The second topic here is the HTTP commands. Recently, we have figured out that many devices are controllable only over HTTP. In some IT environments, maybe it's because of security reasons that HTTP is a more standard way to communicate than to use a custom TCP port for Lightware 3 protocol. This is very useful, for example, the divisible Cisco rooms, where the MMX matrix has to talk to multiple Cisco codecs. In this example, we have here a rootkit mini and a codec plus in the 2 parts of the room. Everything is connected with Ethernet, and then the Cisco can send HTTP commands to the matrix, and in the next slide I will show that the matrix can send back HTTP commands as well. The reason why we are calling this a Salvo, because HTTP allows us to send a complete file and not only a simple command. So it turned out that if the Cisco wants to send a command to the Lightware matrix, probably it will have to send even more commands. And all of those commands can be listed in a single file, and that file, that's why we call it as a Salvo, a command sequence. It can be posted over HTTP to the matrix, and it will read all the commands and execute it in a sequence. So this is how it works. I have mentioned that the text file with several commands can be sent over HTTP. Here is a little example. So for example, I have 4 commands here. I have a set command for the GPIO output, and I have 3 methods to switch an input to an output, and also to send the CEC command. So that's why it's a command sequence here. This file can be saved in a simple text format, and you have to post this over HTTP to the protocol.lw3 target path for the host IP address of the matrix. And the matrix, or any Lightware device which have this feature, can read this file and execute all the commands in a sequence. It is important to highlight that there is no message recognizer for HTTP, so only standard Lightware 3 commands are detected. If anything else is in that file, it will be ignored. Let's see how it works the other way. So I was talking about that the matrix can send back HTTP commands as well, of course. This is needed for the Cisco integration for divisible rooms, because one single MMX device needs to talk to multiple Cisco devices. However, this is very useful for other funny stuff as well. For example, if you have a Philips Hue intelligent light bulb or a Sonoff relay, or even we have a request for an intelligent desk microphone from Shure that was sitting in the middle of the meeting room, and based on who were speaking in the room, it can direct the sensitivity to different directions, and that has to be controlled over HTTP. And we have made a little event manager file for that if input 1 is active, which is on the left side on the room, then we send the command to the Shure microphone to convert the microphone to listening to the left side. And if input 2 is active, then the other laptop was on the other side and send another command to the intelligent microphone. So it is very funny stuff you can do with that. But let's see what's the big trick with HTTP comparing to TCP message sending. So it is very similar. However, HTTP is just an additional layer, and you need to define a file path, a header, and then have the message body. So it is a little bit more complicated than a simple raw TCP message. On the left side here, I have a Cisco rootkit control command copied. Here you can see I can set up the server IP address. Usually the port is port 80 for HTTP. And the nice part with the Cisco, it has the file path always like put XML, because at the end I will have to put an XML structure to give the command, but also in the header I have to make an authorization with a simple token, security token. But if you check out the other part, which is an example from AnalogWay Aquilon API, this is a video processor. If any of you might not be familiar with that one, it has, of course, a lot of multi-viewers and video processing engines. And for this one, they are using an API to have the file path indicating which output I want to configure, and the message body is only telling a simple setting what is the new value I want to set on that output. So for example, here I want to set multi-viewer number 2 to input to show the input number 7, and for reaching this I have to set up the file path and the message post body as well, which makes it a little bit more tricky to use with Event Manager, because I cannot do these 2 steps with one single event. I have to set up 2 events, one with an action to set the file path and one to set one to send the post message with this message body. You can do that like that. However, this makes us the idea to have the macro handling, which makes it a lot more easier. Personally, I love this one because it makes the life so much more easy. When you want to have a complex room control, you were using tons of different events with the earlier firmware version, because each event can handle only one simple action. And even if you were using some linking and stuff like that, you ended up with dozens of different actions for a simple process. However, this macro handling will allow you to execute a simple command sequence with a single event action, for example. It works like that. The multiple commands can be executed after each other, and as I have mentioned, it is very useful for setting the HTTP file path and the header, and then making the HTTP post itself. Also, you can spare a lot of event slots, as mentioned, because many different commands are listed in the macro, and only one event is enough to trigger that. If we look into the detail how it works, again, we have to start with a protocol command file that you can simply put together with a notepad. Of course, you have to use the user manual programmer's reference, which is, I think, very famous for Lightware, that's very well documented programmer's reference, and open API for the Lightware 3 commands. So you just copy and paste commands here, and then you can upload that file to the device preset memory. This is this little screenshot that these MMX matrices have certain memory slots for for so-called device presets, and you can upload your macro file there. Step 3 will be to check if the firmware have recognized your macros, and to do this you can go to the LDC control menu, and in the macros tab you can see here the macro name is recognized. That's the same that I have typed here in the macro, so you can give some labels here to indicate which macro is which. And step 4 will be to run those macros. That's the easiest part, of course. Go to the event manager and just set up an action to run a specific macro that you want. Right. Moving on, let's see what you can do with the wake on LAN feature. It is really easy. You can wake up a PC via a simple Ethernet command. That's a magic packet over the LAN, which can be sent out by the Lightware device. I've made a little example here. For example, in a meeting room where you have an occupancy sensor, you can connect it to GPIO and then set up a condition to detect that, and the event manager can send a wake on LAN packet to the PC. So when the moment someone comes into the room, the wake on LAN packet sent to the PC, and then he sits down at the desk. The PC will be up and running, ready to take the login from the user. This is how it works and how it looks like in the LDC. It's really easy. On the left side, we have the condition with the GPIO. If it is low, close contact, then we sense the condition, and then we can send the action. It's important that wake on LAN can be sent to a specific MAC address, so you have to check the MAC address of the Ethernet interface of your PC, and then the matrix can wake the PC with this command, wake up the PC. I think it would be really useful. I really hate when I go in my in our office in the meeting room, I have to open the cupboard, switch on the PC and stuff like that. So I think it's really a nice feature. Let's move on to the third topic, which is IT security. And first of all, here, let's see the clear text login feature. So as I have told in the very beginning, this is an entry-level network security, basically to prevent unauthorized or even just an accidental access and control, miscontrol of the Lightware devices. So for example, if you have a large network maybe even the same physical network used for the corporate communication and for some devices, then anyone can plug a laptop to that network, and then if he has a lighter device controller, then he can discover all the devices and maybe misconfigure them just by mistake, or maybe to make some funny stuff. Also, the wall plate UMX transmitter has an Ethernet connector on the front plate to have a connection to your laptop for the corporate network, but you want to disable that as a control port for the device, so no one can misconfigure the device. Then you can do that with this login. It is simple as that. You would expect that if the administrator types in the password, he can connect to the devices, but any other guest users will be not able to control the device. Actually, any external controller, no matter what, if it is a tablet controller, a big control system, or just a lighter device controller software running on a PC, it will need the login to access the Lightware 3 Node 3 and control the device, because without logging in, only the product name and the serial number can be seen. So you can still connect to the device, open the TCP socket and start a session, but you will be not able to do anything with the device, only see the name and the serial number. However, after logging in, all the other Lightware 3 nodes will become visible, and then you can check all the statuses or even control the device. It might be important to highlight that there is no encryption. That's why we call it a clear text login. So the text is transmitted in a clear raw way over Ethernet. So practically this means that the medium IT knowledge is enough to read the password and hack the system, but usually it's not really the threat that you want to prevent, because we still think it is good enough to prevent an accidental use or to prevent some funny people switching your presentation away from the monitor when you are in the meeting room. The login feature can be enabled on the Lightware 3 protocol control port, and all the other ports are not really protected with this feature. That's why we encourage you, if you want to use the login, to disable all other ports on the device. For example, the legacy Lightware 2 protocol is not protected with the login, and also HTTP might be a risk there. So that's why we give the possibility to disable those ports. All you need to do, enabling this login, to go to the system settings and then give a password and then enable the login request. However, it is very important to remember that after you enable the login access and you close the connection, you can connect only if you know the password. So just remember that really, or make a note on that. If you have a third-party controller which is opening and closing the TCP socket for each command, then for each session it will have to do the login. So the login is only valid until the session is closed on the TCP socket. And let's see another level of security, which is the MAC filter. That is a more physical filter, because it is selecting which hardware, which network interface is allowed to connect to the device. Actually, how we set it up, it is very common to have an allow list for different MAC addresses, and anyone who is not on that allow list will be just discarded, and he will be not able to connect to the device. In this case, if the administrator PC is on the MAC address of the administrator PC is on the allow list, then and you do not have to enable the login, he will be able to connect to the device. However, anybody else with another laptop will be not able to connect to the device because it is not on the MAC address allow list. You can, of course, combine these two features. So you can put the password login as a feature and to put the MAC filter, and this will give you a second level of protection because it will allow only the exact computer to connect and only a person who knows the password as well. This is how it looks like in the LDC. You can simply set up the MAC filter like typing the MAC address of your PC. But remember that we need these 3 top special MAC addresses to be enabled to work correctly with the LDC. For example, the first one is the broadcast MAC address, and the second one is the multicast DNS address. Both of these are needed for the LDC to discover the devices on the network. So if you clear these first 3, then even if you open up an LDC on the PC that is whitelisted, that is on the LO list of the MAC address, the LDC will be not able to discover the device. And we put it here to be able to disable because that is a very, very strict IT policy, maybe, that the device is not even recognizable on the Ethernet network. So if you delete or disable these first 3 MAC addresses, then no one will be able to tell if the device is on the network at all, because it will not answer to any requests on the Ethernet. However, the administrator PC, if it is on the LO list, it will be able to directly connect to the Lightware unit. In this case, it is best to save the IP address in the LDC as a favorite or something like that. So you will be always able to connect to the device. Besides, it is not discoverable. Last but not least, I would like to show you this little protocol improvements that we have in this new firmware package. For example, we have a new property called connected source, which tells you for each output what is the connected input. This might be very funny that sometimes I have the question that how could we live without this until now? Actually, there was another property which was listing all the connections. So if you are familiar with the Lightware 3 protocol, you might remember that there was the destination connection list or something like that. It was a list kind of property listing all the connections, but it was not really easy for an external controller to handle that. It was originally developed for our Lightware device controller, but for other third-party controllers, it was a very big hassle to deal with that. That's why we added this new property. The second one is the network host name, which is quite interesting as well, that in many cases you have to make a note on the IP address of the device if you want to open up a browser and connect to the device. However, we have introduced this feature, so now the device publishes its host name via multicast DNS and also to the DHCP server if there is one on the network, and it helps you to easily connect to the device via web browser. Just type a URL with the syntax seen here. Just type the hostname.local/ and then you will be able to see the device there. Also, this host name by default is set like Lightware-serial number. However, you can change it to any custom string. So for example, if you have a demo room or something like that, or a meeting room, you can set up easily rememberable host name and just type it to the web browser, and then you can have access to the device. Another little addition is the CEC control that you may be familiar with that we already have this CEC control feature in our devices. So, for example, the MMX 4x2 can turn on the TV only via an HDMI cable with the event manager, or also turn up the volume or stuff like that. And the added feature here is to send an emulated button press. So, for example, the channel up or volume up or something like that is much more easy to use with this new feature. So I think that was all that I wanted to share with you, and I'm very happy to ask any questions you might have. I really hope you typed dozens of questions meanwhile the presentation, and I think we have a couple of minutes to answer all of those. Tibor?
We have a smaller group. In the morning we had more people, so a few questions came. First one: how many conditions can be in an AND relation?
Yeah, so practically one AND operation can take two sources. So if you set up a third condition, it can have input of two other conditions. However, you can make a cascading list. So if you want to make a join of 4 different events, you can cascade all of those. And also we have an idea to improve this feature a little bit to allow up to 4 conditions to be joined in one single condition.
Okay, next question. Are these devices going to support HTTPS?
Yeah, very nice question. I would say yes and no, because as you might be aware of that, these devices are on the market since quite a couple of years. I think some of those are 5 or 6 years ago on the market. So we cannot really push the limits to have HTTPS in these product series. However, the new products which we are working on currently will have HTTPS. Practically, the already released and shipping MX2 standalone matrices and also the modular matrix has HTTPS and also SSH communication, so secure communication, because those ones have much more powerful processors inside. However, these units which are involved in this firmware upgrade cannot really handle HTTPS because it would need a new processor architecture to do the encryption.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and final question: is the TCP client listener limited to 3 devices?
So currently, yes, we have set it up to have up to 3. Just share the screen. Currently, it is limited up to 3. If there is a specific need for a specific product, we might be able to modify that. We just had to make a limit somewhere, and 3 is a nice number. However, if you are using the macros in conjunction with the message recognizer, you can really easily modify the target server IP address on the fly. So if you want to communicate with many devices, you can do that even with a single one TCP client, because you can change the target IP address on the fly, listen to that, and make it in a row.
Okay. All right. No more questions in the queue. So if we do get questions while we say farewell, then I'll read those out. Thank you for everyone who joined us today. I hope we could show you some interesting stuff and some things that you might be able to use in your future installations. Thank you, Tamás, for doing this presentation. Thank you, Gabor, for watching the questions in the background. If you would like to learn more about Advanced Control Pack version 3, then please go to our website, www.lightware.com, or if you don't find the answer you're looking for, then please contact your local Lightware representative or contact HQ support at support@lightware.com, and we would be happy to answer any of your questions. If you would like to get a demo unit because you don't have one of these devices on stock, on which you can install this new firmware, and you would like to play around with Advanced Control Pack version 3, then we can definitely send you a demo unit. Just also reach out to your local Lightware representative, and then we would be happy to provide a loan for a few weeks, and you can connect your external devices, external controller or controlled devices, and then you can play around. Yeah. When the broadcast ends, you will be prompted to fill out a survey. We would appreciate it if you gave us your feedback about this webinar, maybe some areas where we could improve, topics that you found interesting, and we would also welcome your ideas for future webinars. So if you would like to learn about something, then please let us know, and we might be able to make content about that.
Yeah.
So.
I would really be happy if you can put your ideas in the survey as well. Which are your favorite features in this feature pack? Which is the one or one or two which you can think will be very, very useful for you in the future?
Yes. All right. I think that's it for now. We just passed by 3 minutes. So thank you again for joining, and hopefully we will see you in our future webinars. Bye.
Thank you for listening. Bye.